Going to order the 2025-2026 budget presentation to the Fairport Municipal Commission. Do we need our roll call?
We do.
Okay. Could we have the roll call?
Commissioner Jordan?
Present.
Commissioner Dulagash?
Present.
Commissioner Keefe?
Present.
Commissioner Schlaba?
Here.
Chairperson Stuckey?
Here. All right. Take it away.
Good morning. We have the 25-26 budget presentation for Fairport Electric. It was just working. Okay, so this is the budget for Fairport Electric, which is a enterprise fund of the Village of Fairport. As Brian mentioned, this was presented to the village board the other night. This is fully funded by customer rates. There's no impact on the village taxes. The customer rates are set by the New York State Public Service Commission. This budget does include 2 rate increases that were approved by the Public Service Commission in November, the one that went into effect in December 2024, and the second one that is going to go into effect December 2025. We incorporate some of those increases in as well. So on the revenue side, we did see an increase of about 6.8%.
Hey, Holly,
Yes.
sorry, are you, is that slide in this presentation?
It is not, but it is the, it's in a different formatting under the
It's under section 5.
section 5.
Okay,
Different formatting is this.
okay, gotcha, thank you.
So we had electricity sales increases of 6.8%. Again, that's incorporating in those 2 rate increases. We did see a sharp increase in our PPAC for next year. Most of that's related to excess power costs. We'll get into the breakdown in just a little bit. Other income is just the increases into our pole rentals that are subject to increases in inflation. We had capital investments due to 2 large projects that we had budgeted for in the current year. We are seeing a decrease in that line item. The meter project and the substation project were both budgeted for in this year. So even though we're continuing to invest in our capital, we are seeing a decrease for that for next year. And then we are seeing a decrease in the amount of funding we're going to need from the depreciation reserve to balance out the budget for next year. We're trying to rely on that less and being able to plan for future capital investments by funding the depreciation reserve.
Which is essentially been utilizing. I'm sorry. Which is I think this is really great news because I think for the last 10 years we've always been treating the depreciation reserve as a fund balance reserve, right? Almost like savings to fill the gap between revenue and expense allocations. And for this year, going into a budget process, which was made great by Holly and her competency in putting together this budget and making our review process easy, but going into something where you're not trying to find a $400,000 or $500,000 gap to fill, which always comes down to labor or projects or capital investment being delayed, is significant. So that's why he's so happy this year, because he gets to do the work that he said he was going to do and not change the operation based on not having the cash to do it. And it also helps that, we had a normalized winter last year that was decent and having those rate cases in there and so forth. So really good budget this year, trying to keep up with the operation and the expectations of that operation, and having the revenue to do that is key, right? And utilizing the depreciation reserve for just that, depreciation of capital assets and reinvestment.
And one of the things we showed there is, even though in this year's budget, we showed a $474,000, from depreciation reserve, we didn't use it. Even though, we were showing a $29,000 one we'll use in this, the budget we're looking to approve, hopefully we won't use it. I mean, typically, you're looking a year ahead, things change, we adjust, over the course of the year. So even though it's shown, we did not take anything from depreciation reserve in this present year, so.
They're never gonna come exactly on target where you think they're gonna be, just depends on weather, you don't know what's gonna happen 12 months from now.
So in terms of the expense side, we did see a small decrease in the base power costs for next year. That's related to, we use a 10-year average of the kilowatt hours sold, so just like Brian mentioned, we won't necessarily see, we're estimating what the kilowatt hour sales are going to be for next year. We're estimating that they're going to be slightly lower than they were, that we had budgeted for this year, which is why you see the drop of the purchase power. We did have again, we talked about the purchase power adjustment clause is expected to increase for next year. A good chunk of that is related to excess power cost. I have a slide that breaks that down, so. And personnel is higher. We are budgeting for to be fully staffed this year. In comparison to the last year where we had some budgeted for positions that were open that we hadn't planned on filling, but we ended up filling them, so we're planning on being fully staffed for this budget. So employee benefits is up because of health insurance. We are seeing a jump of about 12% increase in health insurance for next fiscal year. The good news is that the newer employees that we've had recently have elected to be enrolled in other health insurance plans, which has enabled us to only have a 7% increase in that line. That's also incorporating increases in the pension plan contributions on the employer share for next fiscal year. Our depreciation expense, because of the two big projects we had this year, we are going to have higher depreciation expense moving forward. So that is incorporating that increase of the meters and the substation that we'll be investing in. Taxes is related to the estimated taxes for the town of Perrington and the school district, as well as the pilot agreement with the village of Fairport. We do have a decrease in the debt service. We had budgeted for taking a ban out for the full amount of both the substation project and the meter project in the current fiscal year. So we had built in conservatively budgeted for a high interest rate. We ended up not needing to immediately borrow that entire balance. So the 24-25 budget for debt service was high on the conservative side, and we're just adjusting it down to match what we're actually expecting to see moving forward. The inventory purchases are up. That was related to, we had built in a capitalized inventory balance, capitalized inventory amount into the budget for 24-25. What we ended up seeing is if you look at our monthly financial reports, we're actually overspending that line, so we just adjusted that estimate to better incorporate and better be a stronger estimate moving forward. So, and then again, we're budgeting for numerous capital investments that we'll get into in a little bit related to what those are moving forward, but we're continuing to invest in our capital plan. So for 25-26, we are seeing a sharp increase in our PPAC. Despite decreases in the renewable energy credits, and we believe we're seeing pretty stable transmission congestion coverage, our excess power costs are expected to drastically increase for next fiscal year, which is resulting in that huge increase for the PPAC. The IEP is also expected to receive approval from the New York State Public Service Commission in May 2025 to take a 2 mil adder rather than 1 mil adder for kilowatt hours. So that's the contributions that we do into that IEP program to fund stuff like the rebates for the heat pumps, installation projects like that that consumers can do in their homes. As I mentioned, this budget does incorporate investment into capital for next year. We have paving at the operations center that we're planning on doing, HVAC replacement, cable injections that we had a presentation on earlier in the fall. Landscaping projects, we're gonna purchase transformers. We have some purchase orders out there that have long-term delivery dates, so we're finally planning on receiving those for next fiscal year. We have vehicles that we are going to be bringing those vehicles back in terms of the purchasing. We've previously been running them through the PPAC. These ones will all be purchased via cash moving forward. So that includes a large bucket truck purchase, which is why that number is so high. There's also street lighting and as well as streetscape street lights throughout the village. So the reason that we are going to be moving forward with moving the vehicles to be purchased through cash directly rather than running them through the PPAC is that way we can build them into the rate or our rates, and also then we can depreciate them and build them into our project or into our capital plant rather than considering them contributed property because they're paid through the PPAC.
The true operating costs, we're buying them on an annual basis for constant replacements. The reason why we were going through IEP in the past and using energy fund, through the NIPA programs and other programs is the fact that we didn't have the operating cash and therefore to buy some of these larger capital vehicles and stuff that we need to do. So we're utilizing that program, which was a nice 0% loan program, but all that money, we put hundreds of thousands of dollars for a vehicle running through a PPA. The PPA was always fairly high with that too. So if this is a normal cost of doing business for the operating budget, it should be incorporated and do so. And we did some of that with this rate case filing. We'll continue to incorporate all of that. Sorry, I'm not repeating it all, but thank you.
So just wanted to rehash a few variances that I think I touched on earlier. Personnel, we are budgeting a cost of living increase as well as anticipating it being fully staffed for the next fiscal year, which is why you see that large increase in the personnel line. Also in our debt service line, we did see the large decrease. Again, that's related to how we had budgeted for the bond anticipation note for the current fiscal year. And moving forward based on we had a lower than anticipated interest rate, which is good news, and also we didn't have to borrow upfront as much as we were planning to. So in summary, we're presenting a budget with a 6.96% increase over the prior year. The Public Service Commission approved rate increases effective 12/9/2024 and 12/1/2025 are factored into the budget. We're relying on less surplus funds moving forward, and the budget does anticipate increases related to the PPAC revenues and expenses, both matching up as anticipated by recent New York State legislation and purchase power trends. The budget continues to show significant investment into the capital plant, and it helps to maintain our stable future and high quality of service.
I was just asking Holly, just to state, per the rate case that we had filed for the multi-year filing, I believe it was almost 8% for the one that went into effect December 24, another 2% plus for the second year. Is that correct, Matt?
It was actually less than that.
It's almost 10 total for both,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah, it was closer to 8 over the 2 years.
Over the 2 years, okay. Matt, can you discuss a little bit about some of the capital projects you're doing, like works on the operations center, things that we discussed, roof?
Yep. So things we're actually doing, some of the roof is actually starting today. It was actually in this fiscal year. So if you drive by the operations center, you'll see them. They get about a 2-week job to replace all the rubber roofs. We're still continuing to invest in the meter system. We will be on track to finish by May 31st. The substation, as we had talked about before, is a little behind schedule. That will roll into this budget that we're presenting and should be complete by the end of this next budget. Everything just is, the lead times are just a lot longer than initially quoted to us. So that is taking time. One of the things with doing our meter system this year, we did not do our typical plant work, setting poles, running conductors. We have some quite large projects. We have a primary 3-phase extension out on Victor Road to incorporate that new lollipop project. If you've driven out there, you'll see the fields are all tore apart. We have work out there. We're working with High Acres as they look to they will become our biggest customer if this comes to fruition. Along with just our normal maintenance, setting poles, backyards, front yards, that $2 million a year we typically try to do with the full crew of linemen. So, in addition, what you did see is the street lighting district on Main Street is original from the 70s. It was, unfortunately we can't utilize it. The piping, it was undersized. It's well outlived its useful life. So one of the big investments we're making in the capital plant, there's almost $700,000 in bases and conduit and wire and street lights, and part of this is just as Main Street continues to change, we don't have electric facilities on Main Street. If all of a sudden we have a storefront that wants to upgrade an electric service, we have nothing. So this will give us, the facilities in the front of the buildings like it should be for the future. So it's a large investment as we work with Streetscape. So that was one of the big capital changes that you saw here for this.
Does the commissioners have any questions, things you'd like for us to expand on, talk about? I know you're just getting it for the first time, so take time to digest this, and we can always respond to any questions you may have or queries. More than happy to do so. At the end of the day, it's a fairly straightforward budget. Revenues come in, kilowatt hours sold, kilowatt hours in. But
I guess I have one question, Matt. I mean, you made a comment that High Acres will become our biggest customer. Could you, just for myself, help me understand, what's the impact to, let's say, our normal residential customers? Is there an impact to, not necessarily to the service, but I'm thinking more like the cost of their bill? Does that impact when we add a large
So
customer?
there's a sweet spot in this. Typically, we have to look at our usage over the course of 365 days. There are days like today. We're not right this present hour. We're not utilizing all of our hydro. So if we have a customer that comes on board that utilizes that hydro, that's revenue. Those are things that help us. When we talk about the peaks, those really cold days where we're buying incremental power, do we need to buy additional incremental power? Yes. But if we look over the course of the year, it truly actually helps us, revenue. What you want to try to do is flatline your usage. Try to soften those peaks and valleys a little bit. So by doing that, it's actually better for the customers, because one of the things that we have to remember is, even though we have a set amount of hydro we're supposed to get, it's actually based, the hydro we're getting this hour is based on the load factor from a year ago. So in the 8 a.m. hour of 2024, whatever our load factor is, that percentage flows into how much hydro we could actually get today. So if we increase our load factor, how well we utilize the efficiency we utilize our power helps all of our customers. So, does it impact our residential customers? No. It'll actually help them. But there's a level to that. We can't keep adding gigantic customers, only because if we all of a sudden started using our hydro more than our hydro allocation all the time, then there are some negative implications to that. It's the amount of time that you have to buy incremental power compared to the amount of power time you don't buy it.
Okay. And so your assessment is that it'll be a positive, a net positive for our residents?
It'll absolutely be a net positive, yes.
All right, thank you.
And one of the things we can remember too is this was an average winter. I know it felt cold to everybody. This winter is normal. If we look at heating degree days, our sales, this was a normal winter. The last two were far from normal, a lot warmer than usual. If we had had a colder than normal winter this year, would our sales have been higher? Yes, we would have bought more incremental power also. So there's that level, that sweet spot again that we kind of talk about. This was a very good winter. It was average. This is right where we want to be for sales. This helps us. This gave us a surplus, that we're forecasting the end of this budget year. If every winter was average, it would be easy to do this. But when you're relying on Mother Nature and how you have to change your trends over the course of the year, that truly impacts things.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Holly, one question for you. You had budgeted a 12% personnel cost of living increase. How does that compare to prior years? Prior budgets?
So the cost of living adjustment, just so we're perfectly clear, is not 12%.
Oh, sorry, maybe I
You're good.
misunderstood.
You're good. The total increase in the personnel line is 12%.
Okay,
That includes a 3% cost of living as well as increases in making, historically, we haven't budgeted for certain positions that were vacant and we hadn't anticipated being able to fill them just because of searching and all of that stuff. We are at the point where we believe we can be fully staffed, and so we've budgeted for all of those positions in there. So a good chunk of that percentage increase is budgeting for all of those positions. And in addition to that, there's the normal increases as people become full journey linemen, line workers, and step increases and the like.
gotcha. Yeah, appreciate that clarification. Sorry.
And we also brought on additional staff over the course of the year. Originally, we budgeted for one, system technician. Well, we have two of them sitting here. These are the things that we have to budget for the future. The business model has changed, slightly. Much more technical, things that, linemen, line department maybe used to do have slowly evolved into, the technical side, the IT side, the engineering side. So it's growing that side, and it's making those more efficient. So part of that 12%, surely is, it's not all cost of living. It's just the additional staff along with getting back to fully staffed.
And that was all accounted for in the rate case, so it balances out.
We did have that into the rate case, yes. There's always little tweaks. I mean, whatever we, do, if we say it was a 2% or 2.5% in the rate case, and this is a 3%, there's always those tweaks as you move forward for sure. As staff comes on, if you find a experienced person that can come in and contribute on day one, obviously it costs more than someone who you hire that needs training in over a course of 4 or 5 years. So,
Yeah, cost versus efficiency.
100%.
Other questions?
Looks good.
All right, then I think we can move on. We have a need for executive session, so I would entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss the employment history of particular individuals.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.